So I have an actual bolster. So you could take a couple of like firm pillows off the bed or a cushion off the couch, something like that. And you're going to lay your spine on this, and then something for underneath your knees. And that could even be blocks or books. I mean, you can definitely make shift. And if you don't have something for underneath, you're just going to keep your knees bent. And then so whatever you've got behind you, go ahead and snuggle it all the way up to the sit bones. You may find too that you want a little pillow for your head. And you might even, if sometimes it can be really nice and restorative to cover your eyes. So you could go grab like a washcloth or a towel from the bathroom. And that, again, that's not necessary. But just finding a nice, easy, supported Shavasana. And this here even starts to open up the chest, the thoracic a little bit, and feels really good. And you're going to play with your arms. If they're kind of wide by your side, you're going to get a little more stretch across the chest and the heart. Sometimes starting out, it feels better to have hands on belly, one hand on heart, one hand on belly. So just take a moment here to get set up, and do be picky. Be like the princess and the pea here. So you want to feel comfortable, and we're going to hold this one probably a good like 10 minutes. Nice, Brian. That looks really nice. And then just starting out here, I don't want you to worry about the breath too much. Just allow it to find its own natural rhythm. So it's just really easy. That inhale through your nose, that exhale through your nose. It's almost that sound that you, that kind of that rhythm that you get into before you fall asleep. And if you were to fall asleep today, I wouldn't be mad at you. And I'm going to try not to talk a whole lot today, since we do want to just drop into this quiet space. So just don't think that the Zoom has frozen. I will call you out of the pose, and we've held this for a little bit of time, but in the meantime, just melt in here. You might do a little scan of your body here now that we've been here for a moment or two. So start at your feet, work your way up. Are there any places where you've started to grip or hold on muscularly that you don't need to? So sometimes that happens without us even being aware. So just release in those places. Really allow your body to just melt over the props. So really kind of take the shape of the props. And as we're here for a few more moments, just start to notice how your body does release a little bit, opens up. You start to feel a little easier here, this sense of calmness. Soak that up. Make sure you're not gripping toes or fingers. So that's another place where we can often hold tension, and it kind of informs the rest of the body. So often, if we can just relax there in the extremities, that encourages the rest of the body to relax. And the same holds true for the face, for the jaw, for the eyes. So just closing your eyes nice and gentle. Face, jaw, nice and relaxed. So hopefully at this stage, the mind is starting to quiet a little bit. That doesn't always happen, especially this time of year. There's a lot going on. There's a lot that we need to get done. So if it feels like you can't turn the brain off, just be okay with that. Maybe start to count the breath. Inhaling to the count of 5, 6, 7, or 8, and then exhaling to that same number. So just the act of doing that kind of gives the brain something to chew on. So sometimes that can kind of put you into more of that meditative state. Another thing that you might do here, and it's really nice in this pose, is to just get really curious about how your breath feels. So we get this big expansion on the inhale, and we can feel it in this shape. So the front of the body lifts, the back of the body releases down into the bolster, and then you feel the sides expand as well. And then, of course, as you exhale the breath out, everything contracts in. And then also get curious about that slight pause, and maybe we even start to exaggerate a little bit. So there's a slight pause that happens at the top of the breath, and a slight pause that happens at the bottom of the breath. So there's this moment of perfect stillness. Nothing is happening. So just notice these things. Another moment here. Good. Take a nice deep inhale. Open your mouth. Let the breath go. Ha. And then start to just reach your arms up overhead. You might even point through your toes. So just getting this nice long body stretch. And just moving really slow, really easy. We're gonna come off our bolster. Doesn't really matter which side you come to. So just find the fetal position, pause there a moment. And then you can use your hands to press up. And we're gonna do a little just resting, twisting pose, or a little mermaid stretch. So again, you can use a bolster here, a couple of pillows stacked up, towels, blankets. You can really makeshift this. If you have blocks, you could always stack some blankets on top of blocks. But you can kind of keep it the long configuration. We're gonna lay our torso down and you're gonna bend your knees. So bring your right hip up to the support that you have. Knees are bent, so feet come behind you. Then you're gonna just take one hand on either side of your prop and then start to lay down. And you're gonna start laying on your right cheek here. And we're probably gonna just stay here today. So as you're here, you're gonna find your breath again. As we come into each new pose, it's gonna take a minute to settle in. So the chatter in the head might kick up again, the thoughts might kick up. So find the breath, count the breath if you need to. Feel the breath, pay attention to that, get curious about that. How does it feel different in this shape than that supported Shavasana we were just doing? As you exhale here, maybe see if you can let those left ribs release down towards the floor a little more. And that's really subtle. It might just be more of a thought, but we're kind of moving in that direction. Observe if there's any tension in your shoulders. Are they creeping up around your ears? Just soften them down. So obviously there's always some effort in poses, even these restorative poses, but we also want to find that place of ease. So we want to work the parts that we need to, but we want to release the places where we don't need to be working so hard. And you're going to notice here too, so these twists are really good for the entire spine, but you might be feeling this kind of like in the lower waist, perhaps especially that lower left, kind of like the back of that hip plate. A lot of big muscles attach in these areas. So in addition to being restful, this is also introducing some nice stretch in an easy way. So as much as the head turns on in these restorative poses too, for some of us, the impulse to fidget or move around a little bit creeps up. So notice if that's happening for you and just become aware of it. It's not right or wrong, but see if you can just give yourself permission to be really still, to melt in. Again, just taking the shape of the prop here. right, so take a few more good breaths here, and then we're going to transition this into a little yin variation that's going to stretch, again, more of the lower waist, kind of the glute hamstring attachments a little bit, and we won't hold it super long. As we come into that pose, if you get there and it feels uncomfortable, you could always come back to here. So just kind of memorize what this feels like and looks like in your body. Okay, and then nice and slow, just use your hands to help you press up. So we're basically gonna stay here. We're gonna take this right leg, so it's the lower leg if you're on the opposite side forward. So kind of like a warrior two setup. So knee and ankle are lining up. And then you're gonna drag this left leg back, so that top leg back. And you're gonna fold in. And it's a really intense stretch, glutes. You might feel it a little bit in that left hamstring. So this is less restorative. This is more kind of a little yin stretch. Try to let the feet relax, the face relax. Back out a little bit if you need to. Send the breath to the places where you're feeling an intense stretch. Nice work. And then again, see if you can let those left ribs gently release down towards the floor. As that starts to happen, does it intensify where you feel this stretch? So again, maybe you need to back out. Let's say like 7 or 8 more good breaths here. If you can be here, again, you're always welcome to come out of a pose if you need to, especially more of these yin ones, which can get really intense. We're getting deep into fascia and joints. All right, so nice and easy. Use your hands to press up. Good, and then bring the legs back together. So we're gonna do kind of a little variation on that. So kind of the same thing, we're not gonna hold it quite so long. So whatever you're using, turn it the opposite way so it's not quite as long. And you don't necessarily need to have it up against your hip too. We're gonna actually lay over our side and we're gonna take our right leg forward, and you can start to bring the legs to straight here. Left leg back to start, and then you're gonna start to just roll your chest open towards the sky. I'm able to rest my right ear on that upper right arm. You might need to, you could actually even prop up if, just depending upon what's going on in your body, you could use a blanket or a pillow. You might start to stretch left arm up and over. And you can hold on, just kind of interlace fingertips. We are trying to release back. So this time we're letting the left side of our waist roll back behind us. It's like we're trying to spin our chest up towards the ceiling. This moves a little more to the front of the body. You might start to feel it in the that left hip flexor a little bit. Is there tension in your face and jaw and shoulders? Release, keep that breath moving. And then start to bring your legs back together. You can bend knees and then just start to unroll here. Press into palms. Come on up. And we'll take that little sequence to the second side. So you can kind of, just depending where you are, you can move your blankets over to the one side. but just setting up. So you're doing the opposite side, so probably left side. Take your prop that you're laying down on the long way again, so you can really lay down, and then just scoot that left hip up close to the prop so it's nice and tight. Bend the knees so feet are facing behind you. One hand on either side here, and then start to just melt in. Find a place where you feel comfortable with your arms. Perhaps close your eyes if they're not. If they're open and that feels more comfortable, just keep a nice, quiet, soft gaze. You might observe how this side feels different. And we're kind of releasing some of those yin stretches that we just did. So it might take a moment to melt into this restorative twist. So that's okay. Feel that right side of your waist release down to the floor. Steady, smooth breath. Always coming back to that. We lose it. Seven or eight more breaths here. Staying soft and quiet. Just use your hands to help you slowly roll up. All right, and then we're gonna find those kind of funky legs again. So left knee is gonna be forward, knee is over ankle, and then start to draw that left leg back. And again, it's the same configuration, knee over ankle. And then fold in here. So again, just laying on that bolster, and you're gonna feel this through the lower right back. Might feel it a little bit in the front of the body. Keep trying to let those right ribs release down to the floor. And if you've taken the legs too wide, you can always bring them a little closer. So do make adjustments here, about a minute or so. Nice, Brian. This is definitely a little more intense than restorative. So know that it's okay to feel sensations. You just want to always be mindful that you're not pushing past the point that you need to. Little less is more. So using hands to press up. And then just bring knees back together for a moment and change the orientation of that prop that you're laying over. And so again, here we're kind of getting this side stretch, getting into the legs, kind of like the entire waist area. So you don't need to have that bolster quite up to the hip. Give yourself a couple of inches there. Reach that left arm out. Good, and then you can just lay your head on the ear, potentially. You could even rest with your hand. And then left leg comes forward, right leg comes back, and then just start to spin your chest open towards the ceiling. Maybe taking that top arm up and over. It might just be resting on that right thigh, so they're both good variations. This side might feel different in your body. And again, adjust the legs if you need to. So if the stretch is too intense, especially on this right hip flexor, even the lower back, the glute, just drag that top leg towards the midline. A few more good breaths here. And then start to just unwind, bring your, bend your knees, just bring your legs together. And then start to press up. All right. Okay, so since we kind of stretched out hip flexors, the lower back area, let's come into a supported Paschimottanasana. So use props. I don't want this to be as deep as you can usually go. So you can use blocks, and it just kind of depends. So often when we come into this pose, we're looking to keep the spine nice and long. I'm not so concerned about that today. It's all right if you round in a little bit, but do kind of just play around with props. We all have like a different comfort level. So rest your forehead on something. Don't go as deep as you can go. It's okay if you let the feet relax a little bit, but you should get just a nice gentle stretch in the hamstrings, and we'll hold this for a few minutes. If it starts to feel too intense, you back out a little bit. Also, if you're super tight, if you're practicing this at home on YouTube, taking the legs a little wider will take some of the work out, and then you could also give yourself a little prop underneath your knees, and that will also help the situation. Another great thing, if you're super tight and forward folding isn't really in the cards, if you have a chair close or like a coffee table in front of you, you could simply rest here. If you're practicing in a bedroom, you could just rest your head on the edge of the bed. So just get creative. And then again, just take that moment to connect with the breath again as we transition. The chatter can sometimes kick up. We kind of have to find that place of comfort again. Nice, Brian. You might find as you're here that your body just naturally releases, so you melt in a little more. You might also find that you need to move in the opposite direction. And I think it's harder to do less. But know that it's okay to do less. It's smarter to do less sometimes. And just listening to your breath here, it's like an old friend just visiting with you, checking in. So one of the things that we're doing when we're practicing restorative yoga is getting out of the sympathetic nervous system, which is it's where we spend the bulk of our day. We're getting things done. We're checking things off the to-do list. Sometimes we're a little overactivated, so we kind of go into that fight, flight, freeze response. When we drop into the parasympathetic nervous system, we're getting into that rest, restore, heal mode. And it's really important that we do this. Most of us probably don't take enough time to kind of just be still and quiet, whatever that might look like for you. But just having some downtime, some restful time, some checking in time. So a lot of people love a restorative yoga practice. For a lot of people, it's incredibly challenging to be still like this. It feels like we're not accomplishing right now. Know that you are. It's a little more subtle. But you're literally making deposits into your wellness bank. And you're practicing the art of getting quiet and being still. So when things do get intense, when we do get kind of triggered and charged and life is stressful, we have this tool that we can call on, and we can drop into this quiet space and check in and see if there's something that we need to know. Let's do about 4 or 5 more breaths here. As you're taking those breaths, maybe you just slowly kind of work your way out of this pose. Good. So you're eventually just rolling on up, and we're going to do one more forward fold here. We're going to come into our Baddha Konasana, so that's diamond shape pose with our legs. So soles of the feet are going to come together. So if your knees are up really high, you might take blocks underneath. Also, just kind of depending upon how you're built, how your body feels. So a tighter diamond is going to be a bigger stretch for most of us, the inseam of the leg. You're going to feel it in the groin. For many of us, it's a little easier if we make the diamond a little wider. So kind of press the heels forward. So they're all good. You can do a little of both if you want. And then the same thing, find a prop, use a chair, fold in any amount. And these bolsters are great because you can kind of find more or less. In restorative, it is really nice if you can rest your forehead on something. It does just have this really calming quality. So it helps us to drop into that quiet space. We'll be here for a few minutes. Again, adjust as you need to. And just make sure that you're not working muscularly here. There is definitely this sense of ease in this pose. That being said, it's not an easy pose for most of us, so you are going to feel a little stretch. That's okay. About another minute here. So backing out a little bit if you need to, maybe melting in. It could just be the tiniest amount more. And let's take a deep inhale. Open your mouth, sigh the breath out. Ha. And then nice and slow, just start to press up. And we're going to come into, first just take your hands to the outside of your legs, draw the knees in, and then just give the legs a little bounce out. So we're going to come into, I'm going to give you a couple options. We're going to move towards Supta Baddha Konasana, which is going to be the same legs, but laying down over the bolster. And this is one of those poses that you can do a lot of props, but you don't need to. So it's going to be very similar to the setup that we had starting out. So you'll have your blankets, your bolster, your cushion, whatever you've got. You'll take it the long way on your mat. And then that same setup, you're going to just snuggle that bolster against the back of your body. And you're going to take that diamond with your legs if it feels okay to do that. So as you start to lay back, you might find that it's just a little too much. You can modify that by sliding blocks or blankets underneath your thighs. If you do have a strap at home or like a long belt or tie, some people like to strap themselves in. It gives you a little more tractioning from your spine. So you'd unfurl the strap, comes around the small of your back, goes over the tops of the legs, and then you snuggle it under. And you don't necessarily have to do it this way. Like the world won't end if it's not done exactly the way I'm doing it. And then you can strap yourself in. So you kind of want to find that place, if you're doing the strap, where you're in pretty good. But of course, as you lay back, you're going to get more tension on the strap. So you need a little space there. And again, maybe you might find that you need a pillow for your head. So kind of whatever it is that you're working with here, you can come on come on in. So it's this big heart opener, chest opener. And then of course we're getting into the hips a little bit of the groin. As you lay back, if this feels too intense to be in your Supta Baddha Konasana, just extend your legs to straight. And again, you could also put something underneath your knees. Also, if you're a little like smaller build, if you're over something really thick, so this is true for like petite women, you might find that it's nice to slide some bolsters, or not bolsters, but rather blankets or blocks underneath your elbows, just to give you a little support. Otherwise, for some of us, it just does feel good to let the arms hang. You start to get that stretch across your heart and chest. Good, and then just finding your breath again. So breath just feels really nice and expansive in this shape. So enjoy this, get curious about it, and really see if you can get that breath to go out to all places in your body, out to the fingers and the toes and everywhere in between. And then again, everything contracts in as you exhale. If at any point as you're here, if your legs are in Supta Baddha Konasana, if the soles of the feet are pressing together and it starts to feel a little too intense, just extend legs to straight. And you can either have legs straight on the mat or knees bent, feet wide, knees knocking in towards each other. And then here, go ahead and start to find a little of your Ujjayi breath. So if that is new to you, this is the breath where we inhale and we start to constrict the sides of the throat a little bit. And it makes this sound like ocean waves or Darth Vader. And you're doing the same thing as you exhale. So you don't need to overdo it, but it's definitely audible to you. If there was somebody to be practicing next to you, 6 feet away in 2020, they would have to be 6 feet away. They would be able to hear you. And as you're doing this, I'd like you to stretch out your breath a little bit. And we're going to move into a little pranayama, so breath work, which is just kind of another way to, another tool to get quiet, to check in, to notice how the breath feels in the body. So I'm going to explain what this looks like once before we actually do it, so you can just listen, continue to work your Ujjayi breath, so that smooth, steady inhale through your nose and that full, complete exhale through your nose. So our Viloma 1 breath is a 3-part breath on the inhale with some retention. So again, we talked about that at the beginning of class, noticing how there's a pause at the top of the breath and a pause at the bottom of the breath. And in that pause, there is this complete stillness. So we're just going to exaggerate that a little bit. And we're going to inhale up in 3 parts. So you kind of have to gauge this. So we'll take a couple rounds of normal breath. You'll empty out at the bottom. And then I'm going to ask you to inhale up 1/3 of the way. So kind of to your belly button. You'll pause the breath there. And you're going to try to, in the pause, you're going to try to keep your body nice and relaxed. So sometimes we start to grip and hold on. I'm going to have you inhale another 1/3 of the way. So up to those floating ribs, so the lowermost ribs, and you'll pause the breath there. Then you're going to inhale all the way up underneath your collarbones. Feel your shoulder blades drape over your bolster behind you. You'll feel your sternum lift. You're pausing the breath, and then you're going to exhale the air out through your nose, completely empty out. When you get to the bottom, you'll just return to your Ujjayi breath, and you'll take a few recovery breaths. So as we're doing this, if the retentions feel too long, just go ahead and breathe. This can be a little challenging starting out if you're new to it. So always just pop out if you need to, just do normal breathing. But we'll do a few rounds of this. For most of us, it feels pretty good. It's a little energizing. It's nice and calming. All right, so here we go. Nice deep inhale through your nose. Full complete exhale through your nose. And then feel completely emptied out. You might even pull your lower belly in and up, and then you're pausing there. Inhale 1/3 of the way up to your belly button. Pause the breath. Inhale another third of the way up. Floating ribs. Pause the breath. Inhale all the way up underneath your collarbones. So make sure that you're not gripping here as you pause the breath. And then turn the breath around. Exhale through your nose. When you get to the bottom of your breath, just take a few rounds of normal Ujjayi breath here. So that smooth, steady inhale through your nose. That smooth, steady exhale through your nose. Length of the inhale, length of the exhale, really nice and even. And we're going to do another round. So nice deep inhale through your nose. Full complete exhale through your nose. So completely empty out. Pause at the bottom. Inhale 1/3 of the way up. Pause. Just like revel in that stillness. Inhale another third of the way. Pausing the breath. Maybe notice how the lower ribs, waist have expanded. Inhale all the way up underneath your collarbones. Feel that lift of your sternum as shoulder blades release, and you're in that pause. Slowly exhale the air out through your nose. And just take a few rounds of normal Ujjayi breath once you reach the bottom. And notice how you're feeling. It can be really subtle. You might not be noticing any difference at all. So these are all right answers. Maybe notice your head quality. So this attention to the breath. Like, again, when we give our attention, our focus attention to anything, all of the background noise starts to drift away. So we have one more round here. So nice deep inhale through your nose. Full complete exhale through your nose. Emptying out, pausing at the bottom, just a moment there. Less than a moment. Inhale 1/3 of the way up. Pause the breath. Inhale another third of the way up. Pause the breath. Inhale the rest of the way up. Pausing the breath. Letting the shoulder blades release over your bolster, your props underneath you. And then let's open our mouth, sigh the breath out this time. Ha. And then letting go of the Ujjayi breath. Not forcing anything, just finding a nice, even inhale and exhale through your nose. There is no effort. And we're going to start to transition into our Shavasana. So if the soles of your feet are still together, go ahead and extend them to straight. If you're in a strap, sometimes you can wriggle yourself out. Sometimes you have to pull up and unbuckle. But then just finding a place where you feel comfortable. So again, if there is anything going on with your lower back, a little blanket, a little prop underneath the knees is really nice. And if you don't have anything handy, bend your knees, take your feet as wide as your mat, and just allow your knees to knock in towards each other. So we find ourselves in this shape again, very similar to how we started. How does it feel different? Notice that. So notice how your breath has shifted and how your headspace has shifted. And we're going to be here just a few more minutes. Really just completely relaxing and melting in. Shavasana. So taking a nice deep inhale. Open your mouth, let the breath go. Ha. And then just start to wiggle fingers, toes, stretch out. So just finding any movement that feels good in your body. And you can just keep your eyes closed here. You're probably going to need to bend your knees if they're not already. And you're just going to roll off your bolster to one side or the other and just pause in the fetal position for a moment. And staying soft and quiet. Use your hands to help you press up to a comfortable seat. Check in, notice how you feel differently. So physically, the breath has shifted, the headspace has shifted. So soak up this feeling. Send yourself love and gratitude for showing up, for making the effort. Just promise yourself that you're going to carry a little of this with you into the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the year ahead. Bring your palms together at your heart and bow your head with a smile. Great work today. Thank you.